When you own a business and you're going through a divorce, it adds an extra layer of complication to your divorce. So if the business was started before the marriage, that becomes an issue and something that needs to be looked at. If the business was started during the marriage, it's a little bit less complicated, but then again, it matters who is the owner of the business. Are both spouses owners in the business? So in which case you need to do a valuation of the business, both at the time it was created and the time that you're going through a divorce, and figure out what value, and then you need to buy out your spouse if one of you is going to carry on the business. I've actually had a few instances where some of the clients, while they're getting divorced, they still wanted to carry on the business together. So that added a very interesting layer, which we engaged in a lot of negotiation to wind up with a result that allowed them to still get divorced, but not break up the business and do a business divorce as well. So the way that we approach evaluating a business in the process of a divorce is we hire a professional who evaluates businesses. And so a lot of documents need to be gathered. They usually ask for a whole long list of documents pertaining to the business, the starting documents that form the business, all the financial data, tax returns, bank statements, anything financial pertaining to the business. And we go back and forth usually over the period of several months where they're evaluating and looking at those statements. And they may be asking questions and asking for additional documentation that they may discover that some of the documents lead to other documents that need to be obtained and produced. So when a business is evaluated, we typically hire a professional business evaluator. In a divorce situation, it would be more financially prudent for both parties to agree upon a neutral evaluator. So this way you're hiring one professional and you're both agreeing that this is a professional we're going to use. We're going to agree upon whatever valuation they come up with, and that's what we'll use as the value of the business. That being said, while the evaluation may come back, if either of you feel that that number is not correct, that the valuation has errors or wasn't done correctly, you always have the option of hiring your own personal private evaluator, and then you can challenge what the neutral evaluator came up with. So the way to divide a business is a little complicated, but not so complicated because, again, it goes back to New York rules. What are New York rules? Equitable distribution. So we do an equitable distribution of the asset. Again, is this a separate property business? Is it a marital property business? If the business was running throughout the marriage, it's going to be deemed, a portion of it will be deemed to be marital. And so that part will need to be evaluated. Generally speaking, we go to a 50-50 split, but again, equitable does not necessarily mean 50-50 split, and you can always go and challenge that and have a court determine some other division of the asset, maybe a 60-40 or some other division of the asset. In an ideal situation, it would be great if people had all their legal documentation in order. They have either a shareholders agreement or a partnership agreement, because in there's often provisions that talk about exactly this, that should one of the partners be involved in a divorce, what would need to happen, how can they exit the business, or how can you keep them in the business. Another really important legal document is if before people get married or even during the marriage, they can have a prenuptial agreement, which is an agreement signed before the marriage, which would talk about exactly this. God forbid we have a divorce. This is what we're going to do, with the business. This is what we're going to do with the other financial issues in our divorce. And the postnuptial agreement can be signed during the marriage. So that means you already got married. Maybe you're signing up shortly after the wedding. Maybe you're signing a few years into the marriage. And it, again, can address all of these financial questions. So if you own a business and you're going through a divorce, it can be really complicated. If you have any additional questions about divorce with the business, please give Sabra Law Group a call. We'll be happy to help you.